What would you do if one morning you looked outside and saw the victim's car, the same car linked to a murder on the news, parked right in front of your house? First, I thought it was a mistake. But when I opened the door, the truth I uncovered was more terrifying than I could ever imagine. Something was waiting inside. And once I saw it, there was no turning back. To hear what happened next, watch this story till the very end. And if you love dark, chilling mysteries that keep you up at night, hit subscribe now and comment your own ideas. You might just hear your story here next. The victim's car was parked outside my house. I saw it before the sun had even risen. The dim glow of the streetlight spilling across the windshield, the hood still speckled with last night's rain. The problem was, I knew that car. Everyone in the neighborhood did. It had been on the news, flashing across every channel. The blue sedan tied to a woman found dead near the river just 2 nights ago. And now it was outside my home. I stood at my window, frozen, my breath fogging the glass. My heart beat heavy, each thud echoing louder than the stillness of the street. Nothing moved. No footsteps. No voices. Just that car waiting as if it had chosen me. I told myself to call the police, but my hand wouldn't lift the phone. What would I say? That the victim's car, the one tied to a murder investigation, was right here, right outside, in the dark silence of my small town street. I thought of my neighbors, all of them still asleep, blinds drawn, unaware. I thought of my mother, who had left early for her shift at the Thai restaurant she ran downtown, a place she had built with the discipline and quiet rituals she carried from her life back in Bangkok. She had told me once that spirits sometimes followed those who died unfair deaths. The thought made my skin crawl. I forced myself outside, the cold air wrapping around me like a warning. The street smelled of wet asphalt and fallen leaves, but closer to the car, something sharper cut through. Lemongrass. The faint, unmistakable scent, the kind my mother used to crush with garlic and chilies in her mortar. I stopped dead. That made no sense. I circled the car slowly, my breath quick, my eyes darting across the empty street. The driver's side door was unlocked. I didn't want to open it. I wanted to run back inside, lock the doors, pretend none of this was real. But the loop in my mind wouldn't stop spinning. Why was the victim's car parked at my house? I reached out, my hand trembling, and pulled the handle. The door creaked open, heavy with silence. Inside, the leather seats were damp, the floor mat stained with something dark. A red scarf lay across the passenger side, frayed at the edges, the kind of scarf my mother used to wear in the winter, embroidered with small tie patterns she'd brought from overseas. I touched it, then yanked my hand back as though burned. The faint scent of lemongrass was stronger now, clinging to the fabric, mixing with something metallic. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I jumped. A message lit up the screen. No name, just a number I didn't know. Said only one thing. You shouldn't have opened the door. My throat tightened as if the words themselves had crawled out of the screen and wrapped around my neck. I spun around, scanning the street, the houses, the shadows between the trees. Nothing. No movement. No sound but the faint hum of a far-off highway. The phone vibrated again. Another message. Close it. Now. The car door hung open like a mouth waiting to swallow me. I wanted to slam it shut, to erase every trace of what I had just done, but my legs refused to move. The air shifted. A gust rolled down the street, carrying with it the smell of incense, the kind my mother burned every Sunday at her small altar, whispering prayers in Thai, asking for protection. The smell drifted from the car. I whispered to myself, "This isn't real." But it was. The streetlight flickered overhead, casting jagged shadows across the hood. That was when I noticed the streaks, faint but undeniable. Fingerprints smeared along the glass, as though someone had clawed at the window from the inside. My phone buzzed again. My hand shook as I lifted it. This time the message read, "Check the trunk." Froze. My stomach twisted, heat rising into my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to go back inside, to call the police, to wake up the neighbors, but something stronger held me there. A need to know. I walked slowly toward the back of the car, each step crunching against the damp gravel of the street. My fingers brushed the cool metal of the trunk handle. And then, before I could lift it, I heard a voice. A female. Muffled. From inside. "Help me!" The sound cut through me like a knife. I staggered back, my pulse hammering in my ears. Eyes locked on the trunk as though it might burst open on its own. The voice came again, clearer this time, trembling, desperate. "Please, let me out." My breath caught. The woman whose car this was. She was supposed to be dead. I had seen the broadcasts, the news anchors standing by the river. Yellow tape flapping in the wind. So who was inside this trunk? My fingers curled around the handle, slick with sweat. I hesitated, afraid of what I would see, afraid of what it would mean. But the voice broke again, fragile and pleading. "Help me before he comes back." The words ripped through the night, pulling me closer until I yanked the handle up. The trunk creaked open. Inside was darkness, the shape of a body curled tight, hands bound, eyes wide with terror. A young woman, maybe mid-20s, her face streaked with tears, her skin pale beneath the dim streetlight. Her mouth trembled as she whispered, "He parked me here on purpose." My phone buzzed again. I lifted it with shaking hands. The new message read, "You've seen too much." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered against the pavement. The girl in the trunk flinched, her bound hands twisting, eyes darting past me as if expecting someone to step out of the shadows. I whispered, barely able to breathe. "Who did this to you?" Her lips quivered. She shook her head quickly, violently, as if even saying the name would summon him. Then she leaned closer, her voice raw and broken. "He knows you. That's why he left me here." A chill shot through me, colder than the night air. My mind raced. How could he know me? Why my house, out of everyone's? The sound of an engine growled in the distance, low and steady, creeping closer down the quiet street. Headlights flickered faintly at the far end, turning slowly, growing brighter. The girl's eyes widened in panic. "It's him. Please, don't let him see me." I looked from the open trunk to the approaching lights, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. If I closed the trunk, I'd be leaving her trapped, suffocating in the dark. If I didn't, he would see her instantly. The engine rumbled nearer, the glow of headlights washing across the houses, painting everything in harsh white. The girl grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Her whisper tore into me. "You have to choose. Now." Her nails dug into my skin, and I could feel her trembling as much as my own. The headlights grew stronger, sweeping across the street like search beams, illuminating the trees, the mailboxes, the cracks in the pavement. I slammed the trunk halfway down, just enough to leave a sliver of air, praying she could breathe, praying he wouldn't notice. My chest heaved as I scooped up my phone and stumbled back toward the shadows by my porch. The car rolled closer, slow, deliberate, the kind of crawl that felt less like driving and more like stalking. A black pickup, its windows tinted, humming with a deep mechanical growl, stopped directly in front of my house. The engine idled, vibrating through the ground. I held my breath. The driver's side door creaked open, and a man stepped out. Tall, broad shoulders, moving with a calm that made my stomach twist tighter. He wore a dark jacket, hands buried in his pockets, head tilted like he was listening for something. The air was so still I could hear the faint click of his boots on the wet asphalt. He walked to the blue sedan. His hand brushed the roof of the car, fingertips trailing like he was claiming it, like he knew it was mine now. Then slowly, almost too slowly, he leaned toward the trunk. My lungs screamed for air, but I didn't move. He pressed his ear against the metal, listening. And then, without looking around, he said in a low voice that carried straight through the night, "I know you're watching." My knees nearly buckled. The man didn't move his head, didn't turn toward me, but his voice sank deeper, like it was meant only for my ears. "You opened the door, didn't you?" The street felt smaller, crushed beneath the hum of his engine, the flicker of the streetlight, the shallow scrape of his breath. He straightened, slid one hand from his pocket, and tapped the trunk twice with his knuckles. The hollow thud echoed down the block, bouncing off every darkened house, rattling inside my chest. From inside the trunk came a muffled gasp. He smiled. I couldn't see it fully, but I could hear it in his breathing. Slow, satisfied, like the moment before prey stops running. "You think you can hide from me," he said, finally turning his head. The shadows peeled back just enough to reveal his face. Dark jaw, dark stubble, eyes that seemed to burn through the night and pin me where I stood on the porch. My breath caught. He knew exactly where I was. He started walking toward me, each step heavy, measured, as though he had all the time in the world. Behind him, the girl in the trunk whimpered again, but he didn't even glance back. His focus was locked on me. And then my phone buzzed in my hand. Another message, glowing on the screen. It said, "Don't let him inside your house." My grip tightened on the phone, the glow of the screen painting my shaking fingers. The man stopped at the edge of my driveway, his boots glistening in the wet asphalt under the streetlight. He tilted his head, as if he had heard the message too, as if he already knew what it said. "You gonna invite me in?" he asked softly, his voice carrying a false warmth that made my stomach churn. "Wouldn't be polite to leave a guest outside." The word guest hit me like a blade. I took a step back, the porch creaking beneath me. My mother's altar sat just inside the window, incense ash still fresh in the small bronze bowl. I thought of the prayers she whispered every week. Protection, safe passage, peace for restless souls. The man's eyes flicked toward the window too. He smiled wider. "You burn incense in there, don't you?" His voice sharpened, lower now. "Lemongrass, garlic, chilies. Just like she used to." My chest seized. How could he know that? The phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but my eyes dragged down to the screen. This time the message said, "If he crosses the threshold, one of you won't leave alive." The man placed his foot on the first step of my porch. The wood groaned under his weight, and he whispered almost tenderly, "So, which one will it be?" The night closed in around me, tighter with every second he lingered on that step. His eyes never left mine, cold, knowing, like he'd already decided what would happen, and I was just catching up. My throat was dry, but somehow words scraped their way out. "Why her? Why me?" He chuckled low, a sound that vibrated through the damp air. "You still don't get it." His hand slid from his pocket, fingers brushing the railing of my porch as if testing it. "This isn't about her. She's just the message." Behind him, the trunk rattled, a desperate thump from inside. The girl's muffled voice broke through again. "Don't let him in." The man froze mid-step, then smiled without looking back. "She talks too much." I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but stand frozen as his boot pressed harder onto the wood. Another buzz from my phone. My trembling thumb unlocked the screen. The message was different this time, longer, frantic. "There's something under the altar. Use it before he enters." My eyes shot to the window, to the faint outline of my mother's shrine glowing softly in the living room. The man noticed. His smile faltered, only for a flicker of a moment, before his voice dropped to a growl. "She told you, didn't she?" And he lifted his other foot onto the porch. The boards groaned beneath his weight, the sound stretching through the night like a warning. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stumbled backward, fumbling with the door handle, eyes flicking between him and the faint glow of the altar inside. His voice dropped lower, sharper, each word edged like broken glass. "You open that door, and it's already too late." The trunk rattled again, louder this time, the girl's fists slamming against the metal. Her muffled cries bled through the quiet. I yanked the door open anyway. The smell of incense rushed out, thick, earthy, clinging to me as I stumbled inside. He didn't follow yet. He stood at the threshold, staring, lips curling into something caught between a grin and a snarl. The altar's glow pulled me forward. I dropped to my knees before it, my hands shaking as I pushed aside the small offerings of fruit and rice my mother had left earlier. Something heavy clinked against the bronze bowl. I dug beneath the ash, my fingers closing around cold metal. It was a blade. Short, curved, its handle wrapped in faded red cloth. My mother had never spoken of it, never even hinted at its existence. But it pulsed in my grip, alive, humming like it had been waiting. The man's voice drifted through the doorway, calm again, almost amused. "You really think that's for you?" He leaned into the frame, shadow spilling across the floorboards. "That blade belongs to me." The weight of the blade vibrated in my hand, a low thrum that seemed to echo in my bones. His shadow stretched longer as he leaned against the doorframe, his voice slithering into the room. "She hid it from me. Your mother thought she could keep it safe." Froze. "My mother? How could he? She never told you, did she?" He tilted his head, eyes glinting in the dim glow of the altar. "Why that blade is in your house. Why she kept praying week after week, burning incense to keep me away." My throat tightened. The incense smoke curled upward in thin gray strands, swirling around the blade like it was feeding it. Outside, the trunk rattled violently. The girl's voice cracked into the night. "Don't listen to him. Use it before he steps inside." The man's jaw twitched, his smile faltering for the first time. His boots creaked against the wood as he pressed one hand flat against the doorframe. "She doesn't understand what she's asking you to do." His voice was sharper now, edged with urgency. "If you raise that blade against me, you'll never know the truth. About her. About your family. About you." The blade pulsed harder in my grip, almost pulling me forward, humming with something older than words. The girl screamed from the trunk, pounding harder, her voice breaking with desperation. "Now, before he crosses." The man stepped over the threshold. The moment his boot touched the floor inside, the air shifted, sharp, electric, like the crackle before a storm splits the sky. The incense flames flickered violently, the smoke twisting into frantic spirals. The blade in my hand grew hotter, pulsing against my palm as though it recognized him, as though it had been waiting for this moment. He straightened, shoulders filling the doorway, his eyes locking on mine. They weren't just dark, they shimmered, almost red in the altar's glow. "There," he whispered, spreading his arms slightly, like he was welcoming me. "No more barriers. No more rules. It's just you and me now." I staggered back, the blade trembling in my grip. My voice cracked as I forced the words out. "What do you want from me?" His smile widened, too calm, too sure. "You already know. That blade, your bloodline carried it here. It's not a weapon. It's a key." The girl outside screamed, her voice raw and tearing at the night. "Don't listen. He's lying. Strike now or you'll lose everything." The man's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped to a hiss, vibrating against the walls. "Do that, and you'll kill more than me. You'll kill the truth. You'll kill her." My stomach lurched. "Her?" He nodded slowly, as if he'd read my thoughts. "Yes, your mother." The blade burned hotter in my hand, urging me forward. And then, from the trunk, a sound cut through the night. Different this time. Not just pounding fist. Second voice. "Will." Whispering through the metal. "Don't trust either of them." The words froze me where I stood. The girl had gone silent. Her frantic pounding stopped as though the new voice had swallowed her cries. I stared at the door, the man still inside my house, his shadow stretching across the floor like it was alive, creeping toward me. He hadn't moved, but his eyes gleamed sharper, as if he'd heard that whisper too. Slowly, he tilted his head. "So, he speaks." The air thickened. The incense smoke twisted violently, coiling into shapes that almost looked like faces, mouths open in silent screams. My grip on the blade tightened until my knuckles burned. "Who is in that trunk?" I demanded, my voice breaking. The man's grin sharpened, but his words came low, almost tender. "2 prisoners. 1 truth. 1 lie. You decide which is which." The trunk rattled again, lighter this time, a deliberate knock, 3 times, then silence. The girl's voice broke through, strained and desperate. "He's trying to trick you. Please don't let him twist this. I'm the one you save." And then, almost overlapping her, the male voice seeped through the metal again, slow and steady. "She'll lead you to ruin. Open this trunk and see for yourself." The man in the doorway chuckled, stepping closer, his boots sinking into the old wooden boards. "Do you see now? You can't trust anyone but me." The blade burned hotter, almost unbearable, as if demanding to be used. My heart pounded against my ribs. 3 voices, 3 truths, 3 lies, and I was holding the key. The blade quivered in my grip, humming like it was alive, like it was choosing for me even as I stood frozen. The man in the doorway took another step forward, the wood creaking under his weight. His shadow crawled across the altar now, swallowing the glow of the incense. "Hand it to me," he said softly, his tone almost coaxing. "You're not ready for what comes next." The girl's voice shot out from the trunk, sharp with panic. "Don't. He'll kill us both if you do." Then, like a serpent coiled in the dark, the male voice slithered through again. "She's not what she seems. That scream of hers is only bait. Open this trunk, and you'll see the face that's been haunting your family for generations." My knees trembled. My throat was raw from breathing too fast. I wanted to shut it all out, to run, but the blade seared hotter, branding itself into my palm. The man leaned closer, his eyes glinting red in the altar's flicker. His whisper cut into me like a knife. "She never told you why she left Thailand, did she? What she brought with her? What she bound to that blade?" The words dug deep, pulling memories I didn't want. My mother's quiet sobs at night, the locked boxes she never let me touch, the nights she would wake screaming in a language she refused to translate. The trunk banged again. Harder. The girl shrieked, her voice shattering. "Please. Open it before he..." Her words died mid-sentence. Silence. And then the male voice whispered, lower than before, but unmistakable. "She can't speak anymore. I made sure of it." The male voice whispered again, and this time it felt like it came from inside my own skull, not just the trunk. Sound, low, throbbing hum. My mother's prayer rose in my memory, a slow chant in Thai, syllables I'd not understood as a child but felt like a blessing and a warning all at once. Sound, distant chime of a small brass bell. The man in the doorway watched me with a patience that made me nauseous, as if he'd rehearsed every second of this night. "You don't have to choose," he said softly. "You can hand it to me and be done." Hand it to him. The phrase felt like poison in my mouth. Hand over the thing that had kept our family safe and secret for 3 generations. Hand over the metal that had hummed beneath my mother's prayers. Sound. My breathing, shallow, rapid. I remembered the night she'd tucked the blade beneath the altar, how her hands had trembled when she told me, in broken English, that some things are chains disguised as protection. She had said one sentence and then stopped herself, the look on her face a map of ages I couldn't read. Sound. A single, sharp intake of breath. The trunk rattled, the male voice hissing like steam. "Open it. See the cost." The girl's voice, small and ragged now, forced itself through the metal. "If you love your mother, you'll cut the chain." The man in the doorway laughed, a sound without warmth. "She loves you enough to keep the secret. That's why it came here." The blade vibrated so hard my fingers blurred. Every instinct in my body screamed to use it, to slash the ropes, to end the immediate suffering. Another instinct whispered older things. Rituals, bindings, the way certain tools were used to unlock and to seal. Sound. The blade's high, keening note. I felt the house breathe with me. Floorboards creaking, the altar's candles fluttering like tiny lungs. Outside, the pickup's engine idled, patient and sure. Sound. Distant engine purring. My thumb brushed the faded red cloth on the blade's handle. The fabric felt like my mother's palm, warm and alive, and for one impossible moment I heard her whisper the syllables of her prayer again, clearer. Do not break the circle, do not let the key be used without asking the names. Sound, a whispered prayer in Thai. The man's shadow moved, folding over the altar as if to smother the light. Names, he sneered. You think names will save you? A new buzz from my phone. I did not want to look, but I did. The message was a single word. Remember. Remember what? I had a dozen memories and none of them felt like enough. I remembered my mother's hands, the way she kissed the blade before she hid it, the way she had once said, "For when the debt comes." Sound. My heartbeat loud and singular. I stood and walked toward the door, the blade's heat searing my palm, and for the first time the house felt less like shelter and more like a witness, something that would record what I chose tonight and hold it forever. Sound. Slow, measured footfalls. The man in the doorway smiled as if he'd been given the ending he wanted. Decide, he said. Cut the ties or I will. I paused on the threshold, the world narrowing to 3 points of sound. The blade's cry, the trunk's hollow complaint, and my mother's faint, impossible prayer. Sound. Everything muffled, as if underwater. My hand moved, not to hand him the blade, not yet, but to the altar, where a folded scrap of paper lay beneath the ash, letters my mother had written in Thai and never let me read. My fingers found it and unfolded the brittle sheet. Sound. Paper whispering open. The words were simple, 3 names written in the looping script she used when she was afraid. One I recognized, one I did not, and a third that made my stomach drop because it was my own. Sound. A breath exhaled like the crack of a seal. I looked up from the paper, the 3 names burning into my vision, and the man's smile thinned into something dangerous and very, very old. You found them, he said, as if congratulating me for stepping into a trap. Outside, the trunk banged twice, impatient now, timed like a metronome for my decision. Sound, 2 dull, deliberate knocks. My thumb hovered above the blade's wrapped handle, the heat climbing until it seared like a bell. I could feel the key wanting, the key needing. The girl's voice cut through, smaller, almost pleading, but the male voice inside the trunk was steady and cold. Open it, and you will see what your mother kept from you. I made 1 step forward, and then another, the blade's hum matching my pulse. The house leaned with me as if ready to collapse or to protect. There was no way to tell. Sound. The world narrowing to the blade and the 3 names. I set the paper back atop the altar, pressed my palm to the brass bowl, and whispered the prayer my mother had taught me in a language I barely owned. The syllables felt foreign on my lips but true. Sound. Whispered Thai prayer, steadying. The man's eyes flared. He lunged, not fast, but with a certainty that stole the air from my lungs, and the air filled with a raw, ringing note as the blade leapt in my hand, answering to something older than fear. Sound. A metallic cry like a bell struck hard. Time snap. The trunk gave a final, desperate groan. The girl's voice, small and fierce, shouted a name, one of the 3, and the house shuddered as if a window had been thrown open on a winter night. Sound. Glass shattering somewhere far away. I swung the blade toward the trunk, not to cut, but to use it as the key the man had promised it was, and the world held its breath with me. The blade touched the trunk with a hiss, metal against metal, and the sound rippled through the air like a stone dropped in water. Sound. Low, vibrating hum spreading outward. The latch snapped free, not from force, but as if it had been waiting for the blade all along. The lid groaned open, and the smell that poured out was neither blood nor decay, but incense, sweet, choking, familiar. My mother's incense. Inside, the girl was crumpled, her wrists bound, her face pale and trembling. But behind her, half in shadow, a figure crouched. Male. His eyes bright with something that was not human. His mouth moved, but no sound came, only a rush of cold air that struck me harder than a scream. Sound. Sudden gust, rattling the walls. The girl gasped, trying to crawl forward, but the man in the trunk pressed his hand against her shoulder, pinning her down. His lips shaped one word, silent but unmistakable, name. I staggered back, the paper in my other hand, the three names blazing in my mind. My own, my mother's, and his. The man in the doorway laughed, the sound jagged and triumphant. "Say it," he hissed. "Free him. Or bind him again. Either way, the debt ends with you." The girl's eyes met mine, wide, pleading, shimmering with tears. She shook her head violently, her voice cracking through the night. "Don't. If you speak it, he takes everything." The man in the trunk lifted his head. His eyes locked on me, steady, ancient, endless. And though he had no voice, I heard him as clear as my own heartbeat. "Speak the third name. And know the truth." The blade burned white-hot in my palm, the prayer still trembling on my lips, the house itself straining as though it would split apart with the weight of silence. And in that silence, three choices pressed against me. Sound. Heartbeat, slowing, heavier with each beat. Free the girl. Free the voice. Or bind them both forever. The paper quivered between my fingers, the names flickering in the candlelight. I opened my mouth. Sound. Everything cuts to silence. The silence pressed in, heavy and absolute, until even my heartbeat seemed to fade. Sound. Faint crackle of dying incense flame. I looked down at the paper in my hand. The three names bled together in the candlelight, merging until they were no longer separate, no longer choices, but one unbroken circle. My mother's handwriting had always been careful, deliberate, and now I understood why. It wasn't a list. It was a seal. The blade steadied in my palm, its heat softening, not burning anymore but warming like a hand guiding mine. The girl's sobs quieted. The man in the trunk stilled. Even the figure in the doorway froze, his grin faltering. I whispered the prayer, each word heavy, final, carrying the weight of generations. The smoke thickened, wrapping around the blade, the altar, the threshold. The air shuddered with a deep, resonant hum. The man in the doorway snarled, stepping forward, then stopped, his body locking mid-motion as if invisible hands had bound him. His eyes burned red, then dimmed, flickering like dying embers. Sound. A low, guttural roar fading into nothing. The trunk slammed shut on its own, the latch sealing tight. The cries from within, both voices, snuffed out like a candle in the wind. The house grew still. I stood trembling, the blade cooling in my grasp, the paper curling into ash in the altar's bowl. Outside, the black pickup was gone. No headlights, no engine. Just the empty street, glistening under the quiet street lamp. The girl was nowhere. The man was nowhere. Only me, the altar, and the lingering scent of lemongrass and smoke. My phone buzzed one last time. A message glowed on the screen. It read, "The debt is closed. For now." Sound. Faint wind outside, then silence. I sank to my knees, the blade slipping from my hand, and for the first time in hours I let myself breathe. But as the last wisp of incense faded, I swore I could still hear my mother's voice in the quiet, soft, steady, warning me that some doors never stay shut forever.